Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Fratello Talks. I'm your host Nacho, and today I'm joined by
Thomas
and
RJ.
Wow, I did not expect that. That's a good one. And we are going to be discussing a topic that personally I'm not too familiar with, but I've heard, I have it on good authority that both of you are at least somewhat, and that is the concept of trading watches to upgrade, so trading up in the world of watches. But before we get into that, of course, let's do a little bit of wrist check. RJ, what is on your wrist?
I just got back from the European Masters in Switzerland, a golf tournament. So I'm still wearing my Omega that I was wearing all weekend.
Your golf watch.
It's my golf watch, yes, the Moonshine.
Perfect. Yeah, very nice. And Thomas, what about you?
I'm wearing a VPC Type 37HW in blue.
Still going with the blue.
Yeah.
Nice.
I actually still don't have the gray back. It's still with my friend.
That's why. Okay.
It's still with the friend who got married with it. And
fair enough.
With it, in it. How do you say it?
On it, with it on?
With it on, yeah.
that's
wedding watch.
Clunky,
wedding watch, yeah. It's now my friend's wedding watch. But I need to get it back, yeah.
Heiratuhr.
Heiratuhr, exactly.
Heiratuhr.
Some German lessons included every episode.
Exactly. German word of the week is Heiratuhr.
Heiratuhr.
To the Germans listening, that was a joke. They won't know, so we have to tell them. Okay, and
Ein Witz.
Oh yeah. Okay, perfect. And I am wearing my Breitling Aerospace. It is of the early 2000s generation, and there's all kinds of things wrong with it. It should have golden rider tabs, but it doesn't. But we've been through this already, so I won't spend too much on it. Yeah, I could get those gold rider tabs. They're actually surprisingly cheap on eBay, but you have to be careful. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of them are the gold-plated ones and not the gold ones. And there are solid gold ones and there are gold-plated ones. But that's enough Breitling for this episode. So let's talk about trading to upgrading, trade to upgrade. What is you guys' experience? We can maybe start with you, RJ. What's your experience in trading watches?
Well, that's actually how I started Fratello in the first place.
Oh,
in 2002, that I was still a student, and so I bought several watches from I had a job at a publishing house here in The Hague. Doesn't exist anymore. Not my fault. But
good disclaimer.
Yeah, I bought some watches, and there were a couple of guys basically doing the same, and. Actually, one of the guys, he was very clever. He hung up these notes in retirement homes. How do you still have your old watch? I will buy it from you. And that way he got a lot of old Rolexes, Omegas, IWCs.
Smart.
Wow. Very smart. I didn't do that. But I bought some watches, had them restored or repaired. And then I sold them again. And that way it was a bit, funding my hobby basically.
Right.
And that way I also could make from several more affordable watches. I could upgrade to more expensive watches, and so I did that for quite a while. And but also not as a business, but to fund the hobby basically. And in the end, I found also myself later on upgrading watches to get like an Audemars Piguet or IWC. And
wow,
so yeah, it for me it worked that way because as a poor student with a little bit of fund from your side hustle job, you could still buy nice watches. Not AP that came later, but it was possible for me to buy some Speedmasters, Seamasters, Rolex, and then later on, indeed, I traded multiple watches for an Audemars Piguet, for example.
Okay,
and.
That was the Royal Oak you had, or
I had 3 Royal Oaks in total, and the first Royal Oak was like done by trading up, and I think that's the topic of today, the psychology of trading up. I think it's a nice way to discover if those watches are for you. So I can imagine a lot of people who start to collect watches. They're looking at Patek or AP or Vacheron or all these high end brands. So I want to end up with one of those watches. And one of the ways is to sell the stuff you have. Multiple watches for one watch. Just I found out at the end that, for example, with the Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks, that I enjoyed my Speedmasters more.
Right.
So I found myself selling the Royal Oaks again and get 1 or 2 or 3 Speedmasters back for in that trade.
Right.
But it's a good way to find out if those watches are for you, and it also prevents you from saving up a huge amount of money to buy just one watch. I think it's easier to just buy a few watches over the course of months or years or decades, and then make that decision to trade up. So I think it's a very valid way. I have watch collector friends who did the same, and they started with Omega or Rolex, and then ended up with Pateks to fund their watch hobby that way.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting way, and it also allows you to go through the steps of like, okay, I start with this, and then maybe instead of hanging on to everything that you've picked up along the way, it's kind of also nice to then be able to say, okay, I've had this for a while, I like it, and now I'm ready to move it on, and then maybe a little bit more about what it's worth, and especially if you get a decent deal, then it's kind of a good thing to then sell it on. And, or were all of your purchases made with the specific goal in mind of then selling them and kind of building up a profit?
At the start a little bit, because I didn't need I don't know, 6 or 7 vintage Seamaster DeVille's or Seamaster 600s. Right. You had all these different variations. Right. Seamaster Cosmics. But it's nice to collect them, and at some point I thought, now it's time to sell them again, or to trade them up to something more expensive. Because that was in my 20s, so when I was much younger, and then it was much more difficult to save up a bigger amount at once to make a specific purchase. I did that as well, but this way it was very dynamic. So I kept changing and upgrading and trading watches basically all the time.
Cool.
So it also kept me occupied within this hobby or passion, or
and learning.
Yeah. Because also sometimes you make mistakes, and you buy the wrong watch, or you find out that there are parts in there that are not original or not correct, or you buy spare parts that are not original in the end, and that's very annoying. But I called it learning money. I'm not sure if that's a leergeld.
Learning money.
I don't know if that's a phrase or expression, but that's the way it works. And fortunately, those were cheaper watches at the time. You bought those for a few €100, and that was it. So if you then made mistakes, it was was okay.
The stakes are a little higher these days, I think.
Stakes are higher these days.
Everything is gone up in price.
I think I started in a good time in the 90s and late 90s. And But so I also learned that when owning these more expensive watches, that you look up to these watches. You dream of these watches. Oh, I want to buy in my case, Royal Oak watch and so on. But then you have them finally, and you wear them also to find out, it's not exactly for me. It's not really my watch, right. Or and then you can sell it again or trade it again for something else. Yeah. So it's a good way to find out what your holy grail is, basically.
What it actually is, right? Yes. Even if you get to what you think it should be, and then go back to what it actually is. Yeah. What about you, Thomas? What's been your experience in sort of, I said trading at the beginning, which kind of implies like a one-to-one, like trade one watch for another, but it's more just the sort of the buy and sell in order to get up to something else. Yeah. What's your experience there?
Yeah, I took the same approach when I started out, basically, in a very natural way, because you start developing a little bit of an interest, and then you try to dip your toe with the first, but you don't want to spend like $1,000 in one go. You start small and you buy a little something, and this is actually fun. And then, so I think it's very natural to start that way. And also I agree, you then quickly find out that your taste is very different in real life than it is just browsing online, basically. Yeah. So you might feel like, I'm not really interested in dive watches or something. And then at some point you get one and you try it on, you're like, this actually works quite well for me. And I found that it sort of shifted the goalposts for the long-term goals as well, as you collect your way up, because it kind of, you develop a more advanced taste, I guess, or a better image of your own taste. So I took that approach, and it's not too long ago that I actually wrote an article for Fratello called Catch and Release Collecting.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I remember
which
that.
Wasn't per se about trading up, but it was about owning watches in a more dynamic way, where you're not really setting out to buy a keeper, but you're setting out to gain an experience with a watch, and just to see how it is, and maybe after a year or 2 years, let it go again and try something else. And I think it's actually quite a good approach, because it's tempting to just amass more and more as you collect, but that's not necessarily where you get the joy. The joy is in the experiencing, I think, and letting something go and getting something else, and especially if you at the beginning trade up towards watches that seem out of reach at first. I think that's a very interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, you get to experience a lot more, right? It allows you to see that some watches are not made like others, and that different case shapes, different dimensions, proportions, and all these kinds of things, different materials as well. I mean, for me personally, it was also at the beginning, it felt like really trying to experience as much as I could. Yeah. I also started out as a student and with not much of a budget, but that allowed me to kind of go into to things that were just priced extremely cheap, and I have done a couple of sort of buy it quite affordably and then kind of clean up the watch and then sell it on, and it's been an interesting part of the experience. But to be honest, I've never felt that I've managed to have like what you say, like this specific fund set aside where then you go, oh, okay, well, I've sold A, B, and C, so maybe now I can get X, and then that's going to be like a major upgrade. In fact, I think last year at some point I bought a watch with that in mind, like trying to do that almost as a bit of an experiment. Like I buy a nice vintage watch and then get it serviced, get some more information about it, do some better photography than the average seller might have on there, and then sell it for a little bit of a profit. Then take the profit and kind of try to. It's like the paperclip to a house kind of kind of a thing. That didn't go well. That was also the learning experience. It didn't go well insofar as that. The movement and the case were not original to each other, so it had already been messed with at some point. And to be honest, though, I ended up with a nice little vintage watch that I still kind of enjoy. So that's it. Like worst case, you end up with something that you like anyway.
It also shows that it's really a trait.
Oh yeah.
You need to be an expert on a lot of watches. If you are going to do this, you need to be able to, before you buy it, see that what's original, what's not. Is it all authentic? Is it repairable if it's broken? So it's so if you do this in a hobbyist way, you still need to have quite a bit of experience and almost as much as knowledge as some of the professional watch traders. Yeah, in order to do it well.
But there is a chance, like trading up doesn't necessarily mean you need to make a profit every time. You can also just put extra money in all the time.
Exactly.
But if you do want to, I did it in the beginning as well, a little bit, where I bought from sort of shady sources with poorly photographed watches, and
you take a gamble, right?
You take a gamble, and then you put on a slightly nicer strap, and you do the photography properly, and then, but then in a sense it's also a bit like, it felt like leeching a little bit, like inflating the cost of the watch for no real reason. But you don't actually have to do that. I found myself trying it that way first, quickly discovering that it's really hard indeed, if you're not a professional dealer, to actually do that.
Consumes so much time as well.
Yeah. And then eventually I found myself just putting in a little bit of money every time as I traded. And so I wasn't trading up in the sense of making a profit towards a bigger goal, but it was more sort of spreading out the investment, I guess.
Another aspect is that at some point, I think I had 20 or 30 like smaller watches, like cheaper, more affordable watches. And then I ended up with a box of, I remember, a wooden box that I got with, I think, 5 slots. And there I had Speedmaster, of course, some Rolexes, Panerai. And what I noticed is that I was having much more fun wearing these specific 5 watches than owning 20 or 30 smaller watches and not really enjoying wearing them, but just hoarding, basically. Yeah. So it also increased it, like the quality of being a watch enthusiast or collector, that you had a clearer focus on just very few watches, but that you really enjoy wearing them instead of just enjoying owning a pile of them.
No,
it's a risk with watches, I guess, because they're so small. And I have the same with guitars. I have a very strong inclination to buy guitars, but they're massive. And they come with these hard cases, so you need a ton of space for it. So I've basically put up a couple hooks on the wall where I can hang them, and I'm only allowed to fill those hooks. And if I want something else, I'm going to have to sell one. I mean, but with watches, it's so easy to just
leave it. To leave it there, leave it in the drawer, leave it in the safe, and then buy another one. That's how I end up with a box with watches you never wear, basically.
Exactly,
the famous box.
And you might try to do the same thing, right? You might try to satisfy curiosity, and that's all well and good. And that's I would really encourage that for people to experience as many as they can. But at the same time, it's like the one in, one out kind of thing. And if you're excited about one thing at a time, you're also going to enjoy it that much more. Because if you have like 5 or 6 watches that you're kind of buying and trading and selling at the same time, it can get a little bit overwhelming, and then you don't know which one to sort of be excited about the most. So that's another thing to look out for. Yeah. Often in the forums, in the sales forums, there's people who will be selling a watch and they'll say, I would also accept a trade for this, or this.
Yeah. Have you ever with cash on their side?
Exactly. So that can sometimes be the trading up. Have you ever done that yourselves? Have you ever traded a watch for a watch, or a watch for a watch plus a bit of extra cash?
Honestly, I've never been in the forum world, so I've never even had the opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, very often.
Really? Okay. Cool.
Recently, sometimes I buy from what I see on a Dutch forum, and that's fine. And in the past, I made trades. Not always the best trades, I have to say. I had a Breitling Navi timer, and I traded it for a
Swatch.
No, worse. There was a brand, and I think Lex covered it last week. Doobie and Schoudenbrand. Because I want to experience the shape of the case of the Doobie. Exactly, of the Doobie and Schoudenbrand watch. But it was not for me. And then I started missing the Navi timer a little bit. It was a Navi timer 92. So those were a little bit smaller.
Okay.
Very nice watches, but didn't properly work out. Did I trade any other watch for watch? Yeah, I trade at some point. I traded down again because that was the moment that I found out. Okay, I had 2 Royal Oaks at the same time. I had a chronograph and I had the Jumbo. And I found myself wearing the Jumbo the most, because for me that's the perfect Royal Oak. That's the design, or the ratio of the dimensions are simply the best on that watch. I had the 15202, and I had this 26300, so that's a 39 millimeter chronograph. It was a nice watch, but it was a little bit too thick. The bracelet was not as refined as the one on the Jumbo. And then I realized and thought by myself, but I enjoy collecting Speedmasters much more than going back and forth between these Royal Oaks. So I kept the Jumbo, and then I traded the Royal Oak chronograph. Did I say it offshore? Was a chronograph. Royal chronograph.
Yeah, not offshore.
26300.
We'll put a picture up. Yeah.
Exactly. With a panda dial. And I traded that watch for 2 new old stock Speedmasters. It was the Snoopy, the first one from 2003. And it was the new old stock 1995 Apollo 13 watch. So full set, both full sets. And at the time, the value was more or less the same. So I think let's do this trade.
It's a fair trade.
And perhaps now it is. I don't know what the value is of the Royal Oak these days, but the Speedmasters did quite nicely still. So perhaps it's still one-on-one. But I enjoyed those 2 Speedmasters much more than that one Royal Oak. And also a risk of trading up. A friend of mine, he also traded up a few times, and then he said, I'm going to try to sell it again and buy multiple other watches for the same amount. I think he went from Patek to then a few Rolexes again, because he said, I'm not comfortable having so much money in one watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he said, for me, it's also very reassuring that if I need money at some point, I can sell the watch and have my money quickly.
Yeah.
And he said, if there's a lot of money into one Patek, it might take me quite a while to sell that Patek while I need the money. And if I have a few Rolexes, it's much easier to let 1 or 2 of them go. Or perhaps today the world looks, this was years ago, the world looks a bit different with selling Pateks perhaps. But so I can also imagine that's a bit of the side effect of trading up, and you have one super nice watch, but then there's a lot of money in that one watch.
Yeah. True. I've only done one-to-one trade without any money exchange, without anything, and that was I used to have a titanium Panerai, PAM 55 with a nice brown dial, and I traded that to get my FXD. That's how I got my my Tudor FXD, and it was a nice trade. The only issue is sometimes I look back and I see a picture of that Panerai and I go, you know, I kind of miss that, and then I also can't help but think about it in the sense that like Tudor FXD, it's in the catalog now. You can go to the boutique, you can get one. That Panerai though, it's not up there every day. Sometimes it's there's a few on Chrono 24 and that kind of thing, but for the price that I paid for it, I can't help but also think like, what if I had just hung on to that and you know, there's not really regret there because I really also enjoy my FXD. No regrets, and I wear it a lot more than I did my Panerai. So in that sense, it's proven to be you know, something you like for something you like even more, but in a way I can't help but feel that at some point further down the line I'll find myself chasing that same Panerai reference again, but who knows, maybe not. I mean, it's
the risk, man.
That is the risk. It's certainly a riskier method than just hoarding onto everything that you have, but yeah, I think no less valid.
I guess it does in a way force you to evaluate why you own certain watches. Sometimes I found like my collecting hobby has always been about just watches that I like to wear, nothing sort of thematic or like a Speedmaster collection like yours or something. I can imagine that you would have a certain Speedmaster that maybe you don't enjoy wearing, but because it has certain significance within the you know, within history or within the range. But I found sometimes I had watches in my box that were there because of such little stories as well, and I was like, but that's not actually why I collect watches, and I'm not. So what is it doing here, basically, if I'm not wearing it? And if you have this sort of one in, one out, or trading up, scaling down, basically, process into place, that really helps you sort of evaluate, like, but this might be here for the wrong reasons, so maybe I should move that on.
It's that, and also what I found out is two things. There are watches that I traded or sold to get something else that I later regretted. Not so much about value development or whatever, but more that I experienced a lot of things with that specific watch. I wore it on a lot of travel. So I had a GMT Master 2, 16, 7, 10 at some point, and I wore it during a lot of trips, mainly holiday trips where I had very good memories of, and still. Yeah. And then I think it was in a trade to get a Royal Oak. right. So, and then I think I can get the GMT Master back at some point. But yeah, that specific watch, it accompanied me on so many travels and so many holidays. It's so sometimes I see pictures of like holiday pictures, and that was a nice watch. And so that's one thing. So there's more like the emotional bonding or the associations that you have. Yeah. The other thing is that. So, for example, when I let go of a Royal Oak, I also had a Royal Oak 15300, for example, that you also realize that if I sell it now or trade it now, I will probably not get it back or buy it back because the prices are so.
It's got to be out of
reach. True, yeah, exactly. So then, with a watch like that, specifically.
So you realize that the price point of this watch is now so absurd that chances are very small that I will buy it back. So you need to be very conscious about doing these trade-ups or trade-downs. Yeah.
Thankfully, no risk of that with the Panerai, but it can happen. You never know. Yeah, true. Yeah, that's we are currently in the small watches to large watches pipeline, right? So like, don't hold your breath. 5 years from now, it'll be big watches all the way. No, or not, right?
You never know
ready, the trend. Exactly. Yeah, or not. I don't know. No, yeah, why not? Gerard likes him.
Apparently.
Friend of the show.
But I think in the end, trading up is a really good way to find out which watches are for you, and also which, because trading up insinuates you want to go more high end, whether that's going to Omega, going to Rolex, going to Patek, going to I don't know what, FP Journe. But I think you need to be very conscious about what you say about these moves, what it implies basically. Yeah. It's a good way to find out, and also to do it in steps, because otherwise some of the price tags are quite significant, and this way you break it down a little bit.
And you say you go from Rolexes to APs and Pateks, but you could also go from I've collected a couple of Seikos and I trade them to get
sure, it works on all price brackets. You can go from 5 Tissot PRXs to I don't know, Seamaster in the end, or Longines, I don't know. So it works on all price brackets.
Yeah, it's true. And if at some point you find yourself being a little bit bored with a couple of the watches you have, then it's a good opportunity to cash them in and maybe get something that you're thinking about, but you don't quite have the budget for, right? I mean,
what would be very nice. So if you go on, for example, Chrono 24 today, you see watches being offered. You have to make an offer in money, right? It would also be interesting to offer watches for a certain watch to see what you can get back. Yeah. Now you can do it, I guess, by contacting a seller, whether it's on Chrono 24 or somewhere else, doesn't matter that much, but it's the biggest platform. But it would also be interesting to make this trade with watches yourself on those platforms. Because now, like you said, it's often done on forums. Yeah. I have this watch for sale, but hey, I also take in this trade, and then it's cash up or cash down. But it would also be interesting if like professional market platforms would offer something like this,
right? Like dealers, yeah.
True, you see it with online camera shops that you can trade up. You can trade in your old Sony or Canon and get a newer one. Or
true. They refurbish it and sell it on in the refurbished market. Get a little bit of a profit. Yeah. True. Yeah, it could be a good way to go. I was also thinking, I think Dan traded for his Breguet, right? His Tradition. I think he Classique. Yeah, he traded a Blancpain that he had. Yeah, plus a little bit of cash in.
Yeah, one brand name with a B from Swatch Group for the other one.
Yeah, exactly. From
I think it was a little bit of cash up.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah.
But it's a good way to find out. And I see him wearing.
What a difference.
It was super different because it was a 50 Fathoms.
No,
Bathyscaphe.
Bathyscaphe.
Was a Bathyscaphe for a Classique, and I think he wears the Classique much more than he ever did
for sure. Yeah, and at some point I think he had that Blancpain, he had his time with it, and sometimes you think you're going to love something, and at some point you sort of go, actually, you know what, this thing is now overstayed its welcome, and it's time to move on to something else. So I think that's something I would encourage people to consider as an option when looking to change their collection.
There is one risk though, and that is that there's always the lure of the thing that you don't yet have. And you can sometimes, it's sort of the opposite of loss aversion, I guess, where loss aversion says it's much more painful to lose something than it is to gain something. But in collecting, it can be very easy to sort of underestimate the watch you already have because it feels like old news. Yeah. And you're chasing this new shiny object, and then you've made the trade, and you're like, oh, it's actually owning the new thing isn't quite what I expected it. Yeah. And losing the other thing, maybe I liked it a little bit more than I did. So there's a bit of a risk there that you're always chasing the next thing where it's not actually what brings you joy in the end.
Yeah, I think a lot of joy is also in the chase or in the hunting process.
For sure, true.
For sure. Yeah, only to find out that it's not for you then.
Do you guys often find yourself almost disappointed when you finally made the purchase? Not because the watch is a disappointment, but because the chase is over and that was actually more fun than you figured it was?
A little bit.
I find myself disappointed in how quickly I go back to searching for more stuff after I've gotten the new and exciting thing, and I'm still excited for it. And then that evening, I'm still like browsing through and going, "Oh, this could also be nice." Yeah. It's like a nonstop, it's a bit of an addiction. But hey, I mean, in the end, it's about enjoying it, and sometimes. On the other hand, I've experienced the opposite, which is where you get something and then it makes you stop looking for anything, and you really truly do enjoy it. But it depends. It's not every watch is going to hit you the same.
I think it also depends on where you are in collecting, what you already had or what you already have, and it's a bit chasing the Grail. And for me, the watch that I'm wearing today was my Grail, and it also, since I have this watch, I don't have the same urge to get any other watch I want so badly as I wanted this one.
Right.
So I bought watches after I bought this one, and I enjoy them. But this is for me the watch that I enjoy the most, basically. Yeah. And but I still keep buying watches. But really that urge, I want it, and I looking forward it for months or whatever, how long, and making trades and so on. That is a little bit over, I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's also very reassuring, very ease of mind, I have to say. Yeah. Because in the past it was definitely different that you wanted something so bad.
Yeah.
But
and you thought it would change your life. But
you thought it would change your life, but it never did. It never did. Yeah.
No, but that's it. It's the end game watch doesn't mean that the game is over, right? You can still enjoy it from a different perspective. Cool, nice. Well, let's get to our comment of the week.
Command,
which is from Field Walker, who says, referring to last week's podcast where we were in Utrecht, he says, "You guys look like you're in a Bond villain lair."
Oh.
And what that tells me is that we need to make our usual set look more like a Bond villain lair.
Oh, okay.
We need to get like a waterfall or something. Yeah. I mean, it's also
maybe a set. It wasn't an office, right?
It was a bit of an office, but there was some glass, and there were people walking in the background and stuff. And
so we need people walking in the background.
Some of them look like Goldfinger walking around. He's also Dutch, right?
Oh.
Goldfinger.
Is he?
In the Bond movies, I think so.
Isn't he in Austin Powers?
In Austin Powers.
In Austin Powers. I'm thinking of Austin Powers.
Yeah, it's Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Well, true.
There you go. International Man of Mystery.
The problem with that podcast was I want to because we got some comments in that you're mentioning this will be released then a week in week this or month that or on this date, that date. So that podcast was recorded a long time ago, and the problem was that we spoke about different Swatch Group brands, and they also kept postponing their release dates, so we had to shift that podcast a little bit.
The issue was, and you hear me mention in the podcast, you bring up the Mido Multifort chronograph, and I said, it's mid-June. It got pushed back to August 28th, which is when the podcast came out. So we had to respect the embargo of the final one or cut it out. I think next year we'll probably structure that a little differently and say there's a cutoff date for the watches, and that way it can be a little bit more timely, because I do understand that people were a little bit like, well, some of these came out a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
well, that's a learning point, but it was nice to have a look at all the different. Swatch, not everything from Swatch Group was there. There was another comment that where's Omega, where's Longines.
Everything Longines down. Yeah,
exactly. No, Longines wasn't there.
No, well, everything, below Longines.
And Swatch was also not there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. Everything between Longines and Swatch.
Yes, everything between Longines and Swatch. Thank you.
That's it. Perfect. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, guys, for the discussion, and thank you for tuning in. And as always, tune in next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. See you then.